Jadi dah tunggu.
Sudah.
Assalamualaikum.
Waalaikumsalam
Dah
warahmatullahi.
ready ke?
Kejap.
Kalau dah ready saya panggil Tan Sri, dia ada meeting tu.
Oh ya kan?
Kalau belum ready tak apa, saya tak panggil lagi.
Okey. Ya.
Kalau dah ready nanti cakap je.
Lagi?
Okey, baik.
Yunis, ada jemput. Okey, Yunis ada jemput ke mana?
Cik Zainul.
Ya, saya.
Pukul berapa nak mula?
11:05 kita boleh start
11. Sekarang tu pukul 8. Boleh insya-Allah. Sebab Rector tu memang tengah ada istidamah. Nanti once kita ready nak start, kita panggil dia lah so that dia from the very beginning lah. Dia cakap sekejap ya, kemudian deal session tu.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. I believe that the number of participants is already 150 participants, something. So can we start the session?
Okay, boleh Zainal. You may proceed.
Yeah.
Panggil apa team technical Rector.
Okay. Okay. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Okay, bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahirabbil alamin wassalatu wassalamu ala asyrafil anbiya'i wal mursalin wa ala alihi washabihi ajmain. To Emeritus Professor Tan Sri Dato' Zulkifli Abdul Razak, the Honorable Rector of International Islamic University Malaysia, all Deputy Rectors of IIUM and members of the University Management Committee, Professor Kamaruzaman Yunus, Campus Director of IIUM Kuantan, Tuan Haji Murshid bin Kasim, Dean of the Center for Foundation Studies IIUM, Madam Sharizat Saidul Haj, Director of the Center for Foundation Studies IIUM, Deputy Deans, Head of Departments, Principal of Mahallah, Brother and Sister, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and a very good morning to all of you. Okay, I am Zainul Abidin bin Ibrahim. I am honored to be your MC for today's session. Hello? Can you can hear my voice, right?
Yes.
Yes, okay. So I am Zainul Abidin bin Ibrahim. I am honored to be your MC for today's session. On behalf of the organizer, I welcome you to this special session with the Honorable Rector of International Islamic University Malaysia on Insan Sejahtera for Ta'aruf Program 2021-2022. Alright, this session aims to refresh all facilitators on the concept and objective of Insan Sejahtera and its important to new students of the Center for Foundation Studies IIUM. The Ta'aruf program is an orientation program for new intake students of the International Islamic University Malaysia. It is a platform where students is being introduced to the aspiration of the university and also to familiarize them with the culture, values, and system of the university. Starting from last year, the Ta'aruf program has been reconceived in which the module of Insan Sejahtera has been introduced. This module aims to produce a balanced IIUM graduates by inculcating the IIUM vision and mission, embracing the concept of Khair, Khalifah, Amanah, Iqra, and Rahmatan lil Alamin, and the concept of Sejahtera itself. This module also encourages an active involvement of all staff to continuously train, guide, and nurture all students even after Ta'aruf program. It is hoped through this, students of IIUM can truly leading the way. Okay, inshallah, before we begin the session, let us start with the recitation of Kitab Al-Fatihah.
A'udzubillahi minasyaitonir rajim. Bismillah. Ya,
Amin amin ya rabbal alamin. Right now, it is my pleasure to invite Tuan Haji Murshid bin Qasim, the Dean of the Center for Foundation Studies, Iium, to give his welcoming remarks. Please welcome.
Thank you, Brother Zainuddin. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. The Honorable Rector, Professor Emeritus Tan Sri Datuk Zulkifli Abdul Razak, members of the UMC Committee, Madam Shahrizad Saidatul Haj, our CFS new Director of Administration, replacing Tuan Haji May Azrul, who is now with the Alumni Office, senior officials of the University and the Center, and my dear fellow brothers and sisters. First of all, let me remotely welcome all of you to our special session with Honorable Tan Sri Rector on Insan Sejahtera module for CFS Ta'aruf program for this session 2021-2022. On behalf of CFS, I would like to extend our gratitude and utmost appreciation to Tan Sri for your willingness to be with us this morning, despite your tight schedule. So thank you and shukran jazilan. I'm sure CFS must be very dear and special to you, Tan Sri. I can still recall vividly about a year ago when we first introduced this module of Insan Sejahtera to our new intake students and organized a workshop on it with all the CFS staff that you did mention and shared with us about an incident where you saw a tree somewhere in Gombak campus falling down, uprooted, and you have asked someone to take a picture of it and put in a frame. So that when you see the picture, it would remind you to CFS as a center that offers foundation studies, that the foundation needs to be strongly rooted, that it needs to be firmly grounded, that it needs to be given a special attention, especially CFS as a gateway for the admission to the undergraduate program of the university. I remember that you did also mention in one of the Senate meeting recently that whatever we provide to students at their foundation years, the norms, the values, the understanding, the direction, etc., that would have a great influence in the students' undergraduate studies. So if it is not because of the pandemic that we are currently facing, I'm sure that there were numerous visits and roadshow that you would have attended in Gambang, as what you used to do prior to this uncertain situation. Whatever it is, Alhamdulillah, Tan Sri, for your information, this year we have received an overwhelming application for admission to CFS. Statistically speaking, based on our data, there are more than 85,000 qualified application for admission to CFS. Or in other words, CFS has become one of the preferred institution by applicants to pursue their foundation studies based on the UPU list of selections. And out of this number, almost 10,000, near to 10,000 have put CFS as their first choice. So Alhamdulillah, Tan Sri, it seems that for the current intake, we managed to meet the projected number of intake intended for this session. And these students are already enrolled and also already with us now. And they are in the midst of following their Ta'aruf program on a fully online mode, commencing from 1st August recently. So my dear brothers and sisters, this is the reason why we are here having this session today, to hear the words of wisdom, the amanah, or the amanat, the hope, the expectation from Tan Sri on how best, especially at this foundation year, that we start to groom and mold our students into becoming a balanced personality. An insan who has the quality of sejahtera and the future leaders of the ummah. It has to be a concerted effort that involve all parties at all levels. So with that, once again, welcome to everyone, and thank you, Tan Sri, for your time, and may Allah guide us all. Aqulu qawli hadha, astaghfirullah li wa lakum, assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi taala wabarakatuh.
Okay, thank you very much to Haji Murshid for the remark. I would also like to remind all participants to record their attendance for the session. Once the attendance is available, it will be shared later in the chat box. All right, without further ado, I would like to invite our special guest for today, the Honorable Rector of International Islamic University Malaysia, Emeritus Professor Tan Sri Datuk Zulkifli Abdul Razak, to give his speech and amanah. Please welcome. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Brother Zainul. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi taala wabarakatuh. Alhamdulillah rabbil alamin. Wassalatu wassalamu syafil anbiya mursalin Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Brother Murshid, Professor Faris, Professor KY, brothers and sisters, let me first of all thank you for this invitation. I'm very delighted to know this. Pukul 4 petang semalam, Azizah kata you have to give a talk. Kata apa to ta'ruf. Oh, okay. So I am very relieved about it, and I want to talk to you precisely for the reason that Murshid reminded us. Yeah, to me, I think CFS is still the treasure house, because this is where the nursery is kind of nurtured, the kind of seeds that we plant, and I'm very excited to know that 85,000 people applied. In other words, they believe that we have got the ability to deliver, and therefore they are giving the amanah to us, and we need to look after this amanah. Out of the 10,000 that put Iium as a first choice, must actually believe that they are convinced that this is a place where they will develop their career, they'll develop their life, and also they'll develop their future. I think this is a great what you call investment that they've given to us, and I think this is not something that we can just forget about it or take it in a very menial fashion while not praying to the trust that they've given us. So that theme is still there. The slide is also still there, Murshid. Lucky I put it in. I didn't know you're going to mention this. But I hope this is something that we can get together and understand what we are here for. I must apologize, I was a little bit late, and I also must welcome Prof. Faris. We seem to be echoing one another, but alhamdulillah, this is the nature of work that we're doing today. My discourse today will be slightly different. If I can share the slide with you, that is because we have moved on. I mean, when I talked to you last year, I was a kind of a novice. I didn't know much about the university, and therefore, I kind of grappled through and say what I need to say from the bottom of my heart. But after being with the university for more than 2 years now and understanding what CFS is all about, I think I can put a little bit more meaning into what I'm going to say today, still coming from the heart, but I think it has a lot more quote unquote relevance, hopefully, to what we are doing today. This is our campus. Unfortunately, this is just the Gombak campus. Gambang is not here, but behind the hills, I think there is Gambang. We always have Gambang in our heart as far as that's concerned. And if you can see also the kind of designation we have got. Last year we have got this Greater Gombak. This year we managed to get another one from UNESCO, which is a UNESCO chair for future studies. I think anticipation for sustainability and humanity, and the co-chair is Professor Faris himself. I mean, this alone tells us that we have taken steps moving ahead, trying to put the university on a global map, making sure that we are there when the world needs us, and we are there for the solution that we are supposed to provide. And that will have to begin, whether we like it or not, with a CFS. Yeah. So ta'aruf is a word that I learned from this university, and I guess it's something to do with orientation, getting to know which direction we're going to take. And in this particular instance, we are talking about the new graduate students that's going to come on board, and all of us are responsible to tell them what this university is all about, to excite them, to inspire them, so that they will do their role and their bits as far as that's concerned. So I would want to begin with something is quite different from the last year. As I've said, we managed to understand a little bit more. Ta'aruf is about making the students comfortable as far as university is concerned. They are our guests, whether we like it or not. They are youngsters, they are young, they are very imaginative, sometimes they are very impatient, and we are here to make sure that they are as comfortable as possible, that their parents felt that, you know, they are being taken care. It's just like our own children. When we leave them somewhere, we want the assurance that our children are looked after as much as possible by the ambience, by the environment, by the people who we have given our student the care for. So I think this is a very great amanah, whether we like it or not. We have taken this. There's no way by saying, no, I'm not interested in this. I think we are all in this together. I think the more we work together, the better it is for the university. So this is given. I mean, there is no way that this ta'aruf will fail if we follow really what the mission of the university is all about, helping people, making it comfortable and making them feel wanted. There's a sense of belonging, a very minimal homesick if there is this kind of a thing, they're moving away, or if they're at home, they feel they're here. Well, although they're at home because of some issues of the COVID, but they are still the feeling that they are part of us, no matter what distance we are talking about. So I think that's a big picture. How do you make people comfortable? How do you make people feel wanted with a sense of belonging and all the things that when we call people brothers and sisters, we do really mean brothers and sisters, not just a kind of a cliche that has been uttered because of traditions or whatever it is, right? Now, so if you talk about orientation, there are two orientations I want to go through today. One orientation is about how do you understand we as a human being. I would want to talk this in terms of manual user. We always talk about technology, and there's always a manual user. Do you want to do certain things? You must switch on, you must put this right, you must have the calibration and so on and so forth, and then your machine will work. Yeah. I think in a very crude way, human beings are like that. Yeah, we have got our brain, we've got our heart, we've got our hand, we've got our limbs. What are all these for? And what is the manual user says? If you want to use the brain, what is it that you want to switch on so that you get the maximum of your brain capacity? If you want to talk about your heart, what is it that you need to use to do so that your heart, as the Prophet say, if the heart is good, everything else is good. How do you ensure the best of it? Yeah, and all these five pancha indra, our five senses. What is a manual user? When do you switch on your eyes so that you can see only the good things? When is it that you switch on the ears that you can only hear what needs to be heard? Yeah, so that all this social media punya chaos does not affect us because we are switched off. When those things comes on board, it doesn't have to do with us. Yeah. So we often talk about this about ourselves, but when is the last time that we read the manual user? It could be the Quran, it could be the Hadith, it could be a book, it could be what is it that we have done so far that makes us understand ourselves better before we even understand other people. So we are going to train on these youngsters that's come in. Do we understand ourselves so that we can understand other people better? So kadang-kadang ni when you talk about ta'aruf like this, kita mengtakruf orang, tapi kita tidak mentakruf diri kita dulu. And I want to go back to this basic. How do we ta'aruf ourselves so that we are fully prepared to ta'aruf other people because we have gone through the experience. And here it says the guidance for all humanities, not just our student, any people that comes across in CFS, we are ready to deal with them because we have read the manual user well, the user manual well, and therefore we can go into action as much as possible. Yeah. Our dilemma has always been, we talk about the tangibles all the time, benda yang boleh diukur, benda yang boleh dikira, benda yang boleh ditimbang and stuff like that. But we also are saddled with the issue, there are things that cannot be measured. The iman, the taqwa, the ibadah, and not all of this can be measured in percentages, in numbers. So there must be a balance between these two. While the ministry often talks about things that can be measured, I think the university wants to talk about things that cannot be measured at the same time. And that, I think, is a difficult issue. We need to understand this well. What is the balance between what is measurable and what is not measurable? The discussion we had a few minutes ago with other universities is about the same thing. When you talk about community engagement, what is it we are talking about? Is it everything that could be measured, or is it something that cannot be measured when you talk about life, when you talk about quality, when you talk about things that are normally not being cited as a measurable sort of indicator? So when we talk about this, then I went into a kind of a dilemma. How do I convince other people, especially the scientific people, that just want to talk about numbers? No numbers, maknanya it is not useful. And therefore we tend to forget about it because this cannot be measured. Yeah? The management principle, anything gets measured, get done. Maknanya if we cannot measure it, it will not get done. And therefore many of the things yang kita buat yang tidak measure ni, suddenly, so people kata orang tak sembahyang Jumaat, orang tak pergi buat itu, orang tak pergi buat ini, kerana it cannot be measured. And I think we need to settle this once and for all. What is it that we mean when we talk about this balance? And I want to go back to our business of education, and I want to do a reference of the falsafah pendidikan kebangsaan. Yeah? That's my reference point because that's the only one I know, and I know it quite well. The rest, I think, for you to add on, for those of you who are more knowledgeable in terms of Islam and spirituality, you are welcome to add on. But this is my very basic fundamental that orang kampung boleh faham. We don't have to have a degree to understand this. I think we are made of 4 components: our spirituality, our physical well-being, our emotion, and our intellect. This, as far as education is concerned, in Malaysia, falsafah pendidikan kebangsaan, 4 benda ini penting. Yeah? And the word they use is rohani, jasmani, emosi, dan intellect. All right? I think sometimes they call the word Jerry. Jasmani, emosi, rohani, dan intellect. Not in that order, but just for you, for easy to remember. So all of us have got these 4 components. If I go back to the idea of a user manual, now all these 4 needs to be managed. You need to use them well. And how do you manage and use them well? Intellect maybe because the moment you go into your class, your lecturers, your professors will tell you what to do, and things like that. Yeah. Rohani maybe where there's usra, things like of this nature, you are taken care. Yeah. Jasmani maybe when you do your co-curriculum, sports, activities outside the classroom. Yeah. But emosi, I'm beginning to ask whether we actually have done enough. Under the COVID environment, when we see our students are not managing their emotion well, then we have issues of suicide, we have issues of depression, we have issues of anxiety, all the work that wasn't there before. Or maybe it was there, but we just don't pay attention because it is not to the level that will alarm us. But now this issue is a major issue and when it comes to mental health. Okay? So how do you now begin to put focus on this? Because years before, this is not our main focus, but I think we need to bring this to focus because the emotion is now affecting many people as far as COVID is concerned. And it's not just a student, including the people who are in the profession, adults, people who are well, quote unquote, into life, but also now facing the same problem. So the emphasis may be different, but the same question, how do you then deal with this? Yeah? And the way to deal with this is going back to what we know dalam bahasa Malaysia aja. Emosi cakap dengan mak kita dia tak faham lah, tapi cakap tentang rasa dia faham. Apa mak rasa hari ni? Ya. And orang Melayu memang cakap banyak rasa, ya. Saya rasa begini, ya. Perasaan saya begini. We are very emotional being. The Malays are. Yeah, I don't know whether there are international people there, but generally I think we are very centered on emotion. Kita bercakap tentang I feel this way rather than no. The word feeling too somehow rather is part of us, and we are very close. Yeah. When we talk about jasmani is another word that people do not understand, tapi it's about rupa, bentuk rupa. It's about jasmani, something that you can feel, something that you can appreciate. Rasa you probably cannot feel in a physical sense, but yet you can feel it in an emotional sense. Yeah, and the word roh is certainly from the word rohani. I don't think it's a Malay word for that matter. I'm not too sure. But these are the words that are familiar to us: rasa, roh, dan rupa. And the other word that's familiar with us is buddhi. Now, the word intellect is not a Malay word. You know, it comes from the word a foreign word. Tapi kita gunakan intellect. So bila kita cakap tentang intellect, orang banyak tak faham. Ataupun the other word kita use minda. Minda is from the word mind. Kita tambah minda, kita jadikan Melayu. Tapi orang tak faham. Yeah? But because the actual word is buddhi. Buddhi describes both this intellect and minda at the same time. In fact, the word buddhi has a better representative because to a certain extent, buddhi is also raw. And this kind of three things in one. Ambil air, there's liquid state, there's vapor state, and there's a solid state. But all of them are air. But in a different state, they have different names. Buddhi is something like that. You know, buddhi is a very kind of an inclusive word that will describe who you are at the end of the day when you talk about Insan Sejahtera. We'll go back to that. I just want to introduce these words because these are casual words that we use all the time. Kita ada wadi budi, tapi wadi budi kita bangunan saja. Di mana budinya? Ya, budinya kadang-kadang tidak ada di situ. Bangunannya ada, dan nilai tidak ada. Yeah, and therefore we see these are the kind of confusion that we face if you don't understand these words well, right? Then from this, I think we now begin to translate it. Where is the mechanics of this? And I think we are now going into the very, very physical part of it. Yeah, and again we have problems with terminology. Kalau kita bercakap tentang jantung, this is where probably the rohani and the emosi is. Yeah. But kita tak pakai the word jantung, kita pakai the word hati. Kita katakan hatinya luka, kita tak kata jantungnya luka. Keras, hatinya keras, kita tak kata jantungnya keras. Ya? Kita menggunakan perkataan akal budi. Dari sisi we begin to see the combination now. Hati budi kita gunakan. Jarang orang pakai jantung budi. So the word jantung itu is a physical thing, but the instrument that work is hati. Tapi hati dalam istilah sainsnya adalah liver. So kalau kata kalau hati keras maknanya livernya keras, bukan jantungnya keras. So these are the subtlety of the language, the beauty of the language that do not describe what is yang kita katakan benda yang boleh kira dari itu. The jantung is not that jantung, is as hati, which is not that jantung is physical, but something around it. Yeah. Bila kita cakap otak, what is associated with otak is buddhi, because like I say, otak is where associated with minda, associated with intellect. The word buddhi is basically more close associated with it, right? And jasad is of course rupa, your physical sense, your what you call your five senses, and so on and so forth. So the functional part is basically this: the jantung, the otak, and the jasad. And it is in the context of hati, buddhi, and rupa. Yeah? Just to make it easy, in English, it's easier to summarize this. When you talk about jantung, kita kata heart. When you talk about hati, kita kata otak, itu kata kepala, head, and jasad means the physical hand. I want to use the word the 3H. So the 3H will make us to remember we are made functionally on these three things: our heart, our head, which is our mind and our brain, and of course the physical, which is the hand, the limbs, and all the physical bodily parts of it, right? And these are the three things that we need to manage. If we can manage these three things, the rest I think we can manage better, because at the end of the day, these are the things that will translate into who we are. Yeah. Bila kita cakap tentang hati tadi, kita bercakap tentang niat. Kalau niat kita tidak luhur, everything else will fall apart. Because kalau hati kita tidak baik, back to the hadith of the Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, if the heart is not good, then everything else is not good, including the niat that resides in it. All right. So we must clean that first, and that's the first business. As the user manual say, you must clean that first. If that is not cleansed, then everything else does not matter. At what point do we clean this? When do we tell our students to clean this? When do we tell ourselves to clean this? Yeah. Kalau motorcar tu kita tahulah tiap-tiap hari kita lap juga lah dia kalau dia kotor. Yeah. At what point do we lap our heart? Kalau dia kotor. Kalau tak kotor pun nak lap juga, so that dia bergeliga, so that dia shining, so that dia becomes a beacon for ourselves, because that's where the niat resides. And I want to emphasize this because the world now is full of suspicion. You sometimes you read the news, you don't know whether you want to trust the news ataupun tidak, because you don't know where it comes from. Yeah. I was just asking my colleagues semalam, one person who has done so much about Islam, I say, why don't you invite him? Dia kata, Tan Sri, he's now being inundated with all sorts of accusations. Where does this come from? And in this university, we don't want this kind of a niat. We want to treat everybody as though they are angels. We want to treat everybody here is very trustworthy. There's no suspicion at all. Otherwise, they have no business to be in an Islamic university. And that's where, yeah. And from the niyat, then you start to make the decisions. And that's where your mind comes in. That's where the buddhi comes in, yeah. And from that decision, you will take the action. So all these three things are interconnected. You cannot get a good niyat and a bad action. It doesn't work that way. You cannot get a good niyat and a bad decision and then a good action. It doesn't work that way. All these things must be realigned. And this realignment is what we call now, in the context of the science of this. I'm very happy that there is a science of this, and the science called it a coherence. The coherence of the mind, brain, and hands. The coherence of the mind, brain, and body. There's already a scientific evidence to show that if your niyat, your decisions, and your actions are synchronized, then you'll get the sejahtera that we're going to talk about. It is no longer something that we just talk about as though, there's no proof to it. There's a scientific proof to it. Inshallah, we'll go a little bit deeper when the time comes. Yeah. So these three things, I think, is the one that's going to influence us. Yeah. The niyat, the decision, and the action is already impacting us since we are small, given who brings up and so on and so forth, and what do you learn from them. And the learning process is what I think we are coming out together now. From that, we need now to grow our students. Yeah, the students are the teenager, and then they will be adults, and then they will go. All these are as a result of what we teach them now, and how do you manage all this? That become part and parcel of the user manual that they are now second nature to. Yeah, they're second nature to. I think this is what I think Ta'aruf is all about at this point in time, that we want to get into the inner workings of us as human person, be a student, be as a professional, be as administrators, it doesn't really matter. So that at the end of the day, as we said in our roadmap, we will create a buddhiman. All right. And the buddhiman is when, to me, all these three things work together. Yeah. And in our own language, in our own lingo, we talk about the three components of buddhi. Yeah. So the buddhi, if you want to talk about it, sekurang-kurangnya ada di 3 tahap. Budi bahasa, budi pekerti, dan budi bicara. Yeah. Let's start with budi bahasa. The kind of language we use, be it the social media, be it your email, be it face-to-face, what sort of language do we use? Is a language that we use, in the word, see the word rasa there? Yeah. Adakah itu akan menyenangkan orang atau akan menyusahkan orang? ataupun create a kind of dissension rather than bringing people together. What words do you use? What choice of word? What sort of intonation do you have? Yeah, what sort of expression do you give? Orang Melayu terkenal dengan budi bahasa yang halus. But do we see this now? When we look at the parliament baru-baru ini, do you see budi bahasa there? It's supposed to be a Malay Muslim parliament. Huh? Do you see budi bahasa there? Yeah, I don't see them. Kalau budi bahasa kita tidak baik, budi pekerti kita pun tidak baik. This is what the synchrony that I talk to you about. Yeah, your budi bahasa kasar, your budi pekerti akan kasar. There's no such thing budi pekerti, budi bahasanya baik, tapi budi pekertinya halus. It doesn't work that way. Yeah? And this is where I meant by how do you now start to work on this? If you think rasa is important, how do you start to work on which one is this that you need to manipulate now so that you can get the synchrony right, so that you can get the sejahtera right, so you can get the person who is the budiman that you want to talk about, which is one of the intention that you want to create. Yeah. Then after that, you will talk about the budi bicara. In other words, this is where you are given the authority to make that decision that creates the sejahtera situation within us and within our environment. Budi bicara, we have given that wisdom to make the choice, to make the decision, so that that decision will be the best decision that creates to the best action that is wished. So when we look at this now, yeah, so at the end of the day, all these things, rasa, roh, dan juga rupa will go back and converge to the budi. So we got these four elements again. Yeah, the budi, rasa, rupa, and roh. That is who we are and what we are, and how do we then make this happen is a question that we need to ask, and this is where I think the ta'aruf becomes important. When all these things connects, then you find that the human being are a human being which is well enlightened, yeah, which is well blessed, inshallah, which is very liked by every people because they met the sense of what the human being is all about in the context of Buddhism. And this is where we begin to see the light of the Insan Sejahtera. Yeah. And I want to see this happening within our ambit. And I want to see this happening with CFS because this is where you begin to nurture these four elements of rupa, rasa, buddhi, and roh. Tak payah pakai these technical terms lah. Some of us are not endowed with this. Yeah. But these are very simple words of budi, rasa, rupa, dan roh. You can talk to anybody yang ada faham bahasa sikit, I think they will understand it. But how do you make sure that these are the instruments, quote unquote, that will nurture us to be a budiman, and finally the insan yang sejahtera tadi is the business of ta'aruf. So in other words, you before you go into this ta'aruf, you also need to understand this so that you can deliver this as effectively as possible because you have experienced it yourself. Ini macam makan durian lah ya. Kalau tak makan durian, I will never be able to tell you how good or how no good it is, depending on how I interpret it or how I experienced it. Yeah. So the experiential part is also equally important before we can deliver. So it becomes a cycle. So kalau dia dah di CFS dah ada benda ni, bila dia datang ke Gombak, the cycle will go on. You know, so you will grow from a student to a graduate student to a lecturer and finally to a pensioner, which I'm already at. Yeah, but I hope the cycle of buddhi will make me better all the time. All right, that my buddhi pekerti becomes more halus as I go older. Yeah, my buddhi pekerti is better than what it was when I was a youngster. Maybe I was impatient then. Yeah, but as I grow old, how can I be better? And how can I meet, quote unquote, my creator in a very, very, very sort of, sejahtera sort of mode, as we mentioned in the Quran in many times, right? So this is the business of ta'aruf. before we even start to talk about what is essential as far as education is concerned. Are we ready as a human person to take our role as far as knowledge is concerned with all these other demands that we have as a person that will deliver to the community and also to the nation in a large measure, right? So here, when I go down, that's why I went to your website, and I really like this word, the gateway. So maknanya orang-orang yang masuk kepada this garden of knowledge and virtue, kita katakan taman ilmu dan budi, the word budi is here, right? It's already an integral part of the taman that we want to nurture. In other words, budi pekerti, budi bahasa dan budi bicaranya sudah tertanam dalam ini. There's no way by saying that I don't want this, because we are in that garden of budi, the virtue that we talked about. And it is a gateway. Yeah, it's a gateway. In other words, whatever we plan in CFS, we will hope that this will be the kind of tree that will grow in all the other campus as they move out of CFS. Your duty is a very heavy one. Yeah, your duty is a very, very what you call a critical one, in the sense that you need to ensure setiap benih yang kita tanam di CFS itu dia menjadi apa yang kita nak dia menjadi. If you pick the wrong benih, then I think we have to deal with it. And that's why when people write to me and apply, anak saya nak masuk CFS, boleh bantu ataupun tidak, we follow by the strict criteria. If the criteria doesn't fit it, and I say sorry very much, because we don't want to make the wrong decision that other people will suffer at the end of the day, because that decision is not the right decision as far as that is concerned. Yeah, remember the decision that leads to the action, right? I'm more even pleasantly surprised when I see this, and I also see this at the same time, right? So maknanya, I think Murshid, you have got it made. Everything is there. The manual, as it were, is there. It's a question whether this manual is put to practice in the best manner it should be, right? So from this, we will lead you to the Sejahtera that we talked about. I've not seen the actual document on this, but certainly it gives me a good impression that you are now in the right way of trying to understand this. So going back, if the ta'aruf is done well at the personal level, yeah, if the students do understand this well, and if we as a person who are delivering this ta'aruf also understand this very, very well, I think we have nothing to worry about, right? The nurturing and the building and the developing, I think, will go as planned, and in fact, probably in a very delightful way without much problems, as it says, right? So if we have got that in place, all right, we know how to use this user manual. We are always the kind of reminded of what we are supposed to do. If the hari ni emotion ni tak bagus, why don't you turn some knob somewhere so that the emotions become better, so that everything lives in this harmony that we talked about. Yeah. And if that is better, then I think we are now ready for the university. And the university, I think, talks about in the general plan, we talk about experiential learning. We talk about cultural learning. In other words, we want our students to have the best experience there is that CFS can offer. And that's why sometimes we are very hard on certain things. Kalau longkangnya tak bersih, kalau toiletnya tak bersih, kalau padangnya tak jadi, all these things, I think, has an impact on the student's experience. Because the experience is the one that will contribute to all these four things that we talk about. They must be well endowed as far as emotion, intellect, spiritual, and physical. And that is where the experiential learning comes into being. Very clearly spelled, yeah, intellectual, cultural, and experiential learning, so that they can be the human person or the buddhiman that we talked about, right? Now, for this, I think the word Sejahtera becomes an incumbent word, important word when we talk about the Sejahtera academic framework, because it is interrelated. I think you have seen this. If you have not seen this, you might want to see this. You might want to read this. That is where this whole idea of bi'ah and stuff like that coming into picture. So how do you then begin to interpret this? You begin to interpret this by understanding what the university is all about. For those people who have volunteered to come into the university must not now argue about the mission of the university, because we are here to set certain certain aspiration that will make the person in coming to the university a better person from what we understand, right? We used to talk about the triple ICE, which is still valid, but we want to go behind the triple ICE so that we know exactly what we are here for. The first thing I think that our student must understand that here knowledge is not compartmentalized, but knowledge is well integrated. Yeah, religious knowledge, revealed knowledge, and reasons. We talk about science and humanities. Just now, when we talk about community engagement, the community wisdom, and universities punya knowledge, all this needs to be integrated, because at the end of the day, knowledge is just one. Knowledge is not compartmentalized the way we understand it. You may be a good specialist in certain areas, but you still need to connect what you know with all other knowledge around you. I'm a pharmacist, for example. I probably know certain things, but how does this connect to other part of my life is something that is also very important. So we talk about this integration of knowledge, and alhamdulillah, this university is one of the pioneering university that has a revealed knowledge and human sciences coming in. And we want to integrate this more, not just revealed knowledge and human sciences. We want to integrate as much knowledge as possible so that we understand the whole picture of what this is all about. And it will bring us closer to God the moment you understand this big picture. If you don't understand this big picture, maybe we're still grappling to find out what it is. Yeah. The second one, I think there are many elements in the second one. We talk about sustainable development. We talk about also an agent of change. Yeah, we talk about a progress. And all this will meet into this idea of sustainable development, which means to say that we are also now concerned about the well-being of the planet, the well-being of people, the well-being of all creations, which is an integral part of it. In other words, the seeking of knowledge in this particular context will be beyond the classroom, because we need to understand the environment we are in, the creation that God has made it. There is a purpose when there is a certain creation is created, and we need to also be responsible to it. We have done this a lot of work, and I'm very happy to know that there's been a lot of people accepting it. Yesterday also we discussed about how do you move this forward to make into a kind of academic sort of discipline, so that it can be integrated in the curriculum that we've got, rather than just an activity in itself, so that it can be shared with other people at the same time. Yeah. Islamization, I think all of us understand this well. We want to find the Islamic aspect of this. We are not rejecting other people's, they can have their own, but we want to understand what is Islam in the context from where they're coming from, so that we make sure that the knowledge we've got is a knowledge that is within the understanding of Islam, rather than taken by different ideologies or different interpretation. Sometimes does not fit into the worldview of Islam itself. Yeah? For that, I think we need to understand what are the dimensions that will be useful to make sure that it is within the ambit of Islam. The spiritual, moral values. Again, we go back to that intangibles that I talked to you earlier. Okay? Where does intangible sits in when we talk about the user manual, as it were. Right? Number 5 is very important, because we are talking about an international university. We are living with an international community. We need to then be sensitive over what is happening internationally, particularly when you talk about the COVID environment, that everybody is affected. And everybody is affected in almost the same way, then how do you then play our role to make sure that everybody also deserves the same treatment? We talk about vaccine, for example. Why do certain countries have better vaccine supply as compared to many of the other countries around the world, particularly the Muslim community? Who will talk for them? Who will debate for them? Who will make arguments for them if it's not us in our own community, sort of as an ummah that is also mindful of our duty interculturally? We talk about, again, this one, Yeah? The intercultural understanding, there are 100 nations within this university. And how do you understand with one another? Sometimes the words are the same, but the meaning are different. And how do you actually get to understand if you don't talk across within cultures or between cultures and create an understanding of where we are so that we can move as an ummah rather than being divisive as what's happening today in many parts of the world, particularly in the Muslim world. And last but not least is about our sense of responsibility, and this is where we go back in terms of contributing or giving back to what we have got from the community or whoever has given us whatever we have got today to make us a better person. Yeah. So the triple ICE that we talked about is about the 7 things: integration of knowledge, sustainable development. These are just the big ideas, yeah? But there are other description that relates to it. But for the student yang masuk, they just give them the big ideas. I think it's enough for the time being, right? That they understand all this is one, and they must interrelate. You cannot do Islamization if your intercultural understanding is bad. That's how it relates. You cannot do Islamization if you have a very poor sense of social responsibility. Yeah, you cannot integrate knowledge if you do not have good moral, spiritual values, because that's part of the integration that we talk about. Yeah. So all these are interconnected. You cannot take one and run. That I'm going to specialize only in Islamization, the rest I don't care. It will not work. And this, I think, this is a debate that we are having now. Do you just take one and specialize, or do you connect all this? If you talk about integration of knowledge, you need to connect all this. And the more you know, the more connectivity you make, the better sense that it is to convince other people of what our mission statement is all about. Yeah, because at the end of the day, this will create the kind of community that we will create. And this is where the social engagement part becomes an important driver to make sure that all these are put in its proper perspective, so that when we end up, we will then accomplish our mission by not only creating the human person, but also creating the community that supports him and he supports the community at the same time. All right. For those of you who have difficulty, just remember 5 ISR. This I is integration, Islamization, internationalization, intercultural understanding. This S is sustainable development. This R is social responsibility. I think you will remember. You can hafaz Quran. I'm sure you can remember these 7 things at the tip of your finger. But yet, this is what experiential learning is all about. Yeah. After understanding yourself and how do you experience it, then you modulate this into what you know as a person that needs to deliver. And this is where the 2 things comes together. Yeah, the person and the role playing and the delivery, and that needs to be given through this ta'aruf. I hope we can do that as well as we could. Yeah. Eventually, I think you'll be thrown into the open space. And when we talk about experiential learning, it is you with the community, be it within the university, outside the community. And the scenario is not good. The world is in imbalance, economically, socially, ecologically, or politically, or whatever it is. All is in a chaos at the moment in time. In other words, we are in an uncertain mode. In other words, we have to do this balancing almost every day. Yeah, and this is where you as a Buddhiman will have an upper hand. If you're already able to control the three A's, as it were, you know how to manage it, and you become a real Buddhiman, I think you will live a life which is more comfortable, more balanced, and more sejahtera in that particular context. And these, I think, the nurturing that needs to be done, so that when they get caught into an experience like we see now, the coronavirus, they don't lose hope very easily, because they know how to manage themselves, and they know how to actually live a life that is balanced and also sejahtera in this particular context. All right. So this is going to be our challenge. But the moment we find a new balance, and to make sure that we are able to handle whatever pressures that we have gone through, because we have well understood who we are, then I think most of the issue will go away or will take care of itself. If it doesn't, then I think there are other facilities that the university will provide for you, especially in the context of mental health. So in a nutshell, when I look at Takruf this time around, it's just to make sure that we are positioned in a way that our students can be independent. Yeah? Can be independent in the sense that they know how to make decisions and they know how to take action. They have got a skill of coping. They are resilient when they are down. They don't give up very easily. They don't get into a chaotic state that people will find it's difficult to handle them. How do you put this into perspective is how we deliver some of these issues that we now see that our students are facing. Yeah? And we need then, therefore, to depend on the community. So the support of the community becomes important. It could be within the university itself. It could be outside the university when we need to depend on other people's sort of contribution to the university. So keeping together as a family, keeping together as an ummah, keeping together as brothers and sisters, I think is the mainstay, that we are here to help each other. We are here to make sure that this whole community of ours will be a community that will sustain itself over a long period of time, right? And therefore, we need to get rid of some of this thing that is plaguing them. See, people are talking about pandemic, wabak, berita palsu. You know, when sometimes even the truth, you need to see how many lies are there in the truth. I like this picture. Yeah, we really need to be mindful of what sort of knowledge do we consume. How do you actually react to knowledge? How information? Don't react impulsively because you do not know what is the worth of that knowledge that you've got. That is the other thing that we think you need to exercise, and you need to tell the students better so that some of the negative thoughts will go out, and what we will want to substitute, therefore, this is the Sejahtera thing. Right? The Sejahtera thing tells us basically we need to be thankful of what we have got. I think sometimes we overlook of the gratitude that have been given to us by anybody. It could be your friend, it could be an outsider, it could be a stranger, certainly it's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is what Budi is all about. The crux of the Budi is you must know membalas Budi. Yeah? And sometimes membalas Budi ini doesn't even appear in our thoughts because we think this is ours and we take it for granted. I come here, I pay the fees, and therefore I deserve all this. It doesn't work that way. Yeah? For every gratitude you give, you must pay back. And the paying back is what Budi Bahasa is all about, Budi Pekerti and Budi Bicara is about. And we cannot even explain this. We can always talk about it in the context of pantun. Yeah? Pisang emas di bawah belayar, masak sebiji di atas peti, hutang emas boleh dibayar, hutang budi di bawah mati. You can't even pay that gratitude. But yet we need to make sure that we are grateful over what we do. The moment we are grateful, what we think is not enough becomes enough. The problem is that sometimes we are never grateful, and therefore what is enough is never enough. Yeah, we want more, we want more, we want more. And so sometimes it is just not possible. Now it's just not possible. There are times that we say enough is enough because I've got what I need for today. Other people will also have to have the needs. We cannot be just thinking about ourselves, but not talking about the people around us, particularly the community around us. This is why we talk about rooting the Sejahtera thing, that we know that we are there, and I think that is sufficient for us. We don't want to have anything else. And the rooting is where we begin to understand what values it brings to us. The values of being grateful, the values of, saying thank you, the values of giving back. All these are the ones that makes you feel that you deserve to be the human that you are made to be. Only when you feel that you are not sufficiently given, then you becomes that rebellious nature that we see oftentimes among youth as far as that's concerned. Yeah. So Sejahtera will also mean for me a kind of a freedom for intellectual pursuit. In other words, you want to give yourself the whole works of how to imagine better solutions when we meet with certain challenges. All right. We are given that buddhi in the context of the intellect and minda. I will not talk about it a little bit later. But we want to make sure that you don't have a kind of a vacuum, that we meet certain things that you just surrender to it, that you think there's no way out of this. Your thinking capacity get paralyzed, yeah, that you do not know how to make good decision, and therefore sometimes your action does not deserve what you get, right? And that means you need to be constantly be aware of what your rules and duty are, so that this well-being that you are trying to develop will get, part and parcel of your living as such. Yeah. So this is where I think the tree that Murshid was talking about. I took this picture and I always kept it with me because it reminded me a big tree can fall as easily as it is. And the moment you look at it, you find that the roots are not well developed. Yeah. And the roots are often the cause of the problem. In other words, when I talk about being aware, what are the value systems that you have within you? What are the value systems that actually will keep you strong? What are the value systems that will make you think as a rational human being? What are the value systems that will allow you to empathize with other people who have got other issues that you need to deal with? The question of sympathy, the question of compassion, the question of all the things that Islam tells us to have, that makes you a person that can be rooted and rooted well, regardless of what challenges that we need to meet. All right. And these are the information that I think you need to pass on to the students. These are the things that we need to actually tell the students how to nurture them into the strong human being, into the strong tree that we talk about. If you look at CFS as a nursery, will all this grow into a big, nice, beautiful tree, the one that we want to build, want to grow as far as our students is concerned. Yeah, this picture will remain in my mind for a long time because that reminds me the moment I am not rooted, I will fall. Right? There's a small breeze that comes through, you will fall because your roots are not strong. And this breeze that comes through now are getting more and more what do you call what would I choose? More stronger than it used before in the context of the issues that's going on in the country as it were today, right? So I will stop there. I guess that is my contribution this time around. If you have time, if there is any question and answers, I will try to answer you. And so when we talk about the Insan Sejahtera, it's basically talking about how do you create this human person that will be dependable, that will be independent, that will make the right decisions because he knows who he or she is and how he or she is will interact with the environment, at the same time gaining experience as you go through life in this university, in the campus, and particularly in CFS. Yeah. So Murshid, I'll stop there. Thank you very much. I will try and answer any question if there is for this moment, inshallah. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi taala wabarakatuh.
Alhamdulillah. Thank you very much, Tan Sri, for your very informative and uplifting speech. I believe that there are a lot of information for us to digest, and I really hope that participants and Iium community especially can digest all the points given and translate it to in the near future, inshallah. Okay. Okay, hold on. All right, now I would like to invite, inshallah, after this, we will have the Q&A session. Now I would like to invite Brother Taifun Hisham bin Taib Deputy Deans of the Student Development and Community Engagement Center for Foundation Studies IIM, to give his briefing on the implementation of Insan Sejahtera module in the Center for Foundation Studies IIM. So the session is yours. Please welcome.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillazi hadana lihadza wa ma kunna linahtadi laula an hadana Allah. Asyhadu an la ilaha illallah, asyhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluh. Thank you very much, Brother Zainul Abidin, and for your hard works and your team to conduct this very meaningful session with our Honorable Rector. And then to our Honorable Rector, Emeritus Professor Tan Sri Dr. Zulkifli Abdul Razak, and thank you very much, Tan Sri, for giving us your wisdom to recreate the momentum for the facilitators so that they will be able to conduct our Insan Sejahtera session with the new students next week, inshallah. And then to all UMC members, especially to Professor Ahmad Faris Ismail, and then Campus Director of Kuantan, Professor Kamal Zaman Yunus, and also Tuan Haji Moshid Kasim, Honorable Dean, to all head of departments, principals and fellows, academic staff and technical staff. So Alhamdulillah, we just listened to Tan Sri word of wisdoms. I hope it is really it is just a very high time for us to get his wisdom and his hope that we be able to conduct our Insan Sejahtera module as effective as possible. Of course, within this limited time and limited vicinity because of due to the pandemic era. That's why compared to the last year's session, Tan Sri, we have these opportunities to get the students in the face-to-face mode. So if we look at the last year report I presented to the task force, that we can see the creativity of the facilitators of conducting the program to the new students. I believe Tan Sri still remember the video created by the new students, using their sign language to interpret, to interpret the Iium song. So these are the things that very surprisingly, the commitment and the enthusiasm of the new students to get engaged with all the academic staff. So these are the whole thing about the reconceptualization is all about. Previously, we just conduct talks, briefing, and so on and so forth. But this time around, the reconceptualization is for us, for the academic staff, to get engaged with the new students. And we can see from last year that the new students were very excited. Before that, they communicate with their teachers, with their friends, and this time around, they want to get engaged with the university staff, with the lecturers. So that is why I think the motivation that gave us the results of last year Insan Sejahtera session. So that's my introduction. So may I share my slide? All right, so this is hopefully can go through this as quickly as possible so that we can open a question. I believe the facilitators cannot wait to discuss, to have direct session Q&A with Tan Sri. Now, first, let us look at the first slide. This is a background. So this process began since early 2020. And then this is the slide. I think Tan Sri knew this very well about our ultimate goal of this, the whole process. The ultimate goal is to achieve Ridwanullah, itu keridaan Allah Subhanahu Wa Taala. So everybody, when I ask, they really like this beeping image of the heart. Jantung tu dia berdegup. The message which I can capture is that it's just to show that it is alive. That's what I mean by humanizing the whole process of teaching and learning. Not just to teach, not just to learn, but to learn to do things, to know how to do things whatsoever. So that's meant by humanizing education. So these are the things that I think the facilitators should know. Although this is the framework that our CFS student will face in main campus, it's very important for us to know this. Because why? If you want to prepare our CFS students, so we must prepare them according to what they will face in main campus. For example, the objective that you can see on the left side of this slide, we must prepare our CFS students so that they'll be ready to learn how to know, learn to do, learn to live together, learn to be, learn to become. Then they can be ready to explore this educational journey according to this academic framework. Because why? If we fail to produce the student with these attributes, then I believe it's going to be very difficult for them to go through this educational journey, to go through to complete this educational framework. You can see so many things they have to explore in this framework. So these are the objectives of this Insan Sejahtera session, which is to introduce the new students to the university aspiration via its mission as well as the university roadmap, to inculcate the university core values, taqwa, amanah, accountability, justice, by embracing the concept of sejahtera according to the falsafah pendidikan kebangsaan, or nurturing the insan sejahtera, which is the core value of the falsafah pendidikan kebangsaan, is just mentioned by Tan Sri just now, pertaining to the Jerry. Those days, it's very difficult for me to memorize this core value. Then someone told me, very easy, like Taiful, just mention Jerry. I thought it's Tom and Jerry. It's not Tom and Jerry actually. The Jerry stands for the short form of the jasmani, amanah, rohani dan juga intellect. So then it's very easy for us to memorize this, but not just to memorize, but we bring this not just during Insan Sejahtera module, but also during our teaching and learning in class. So of course we must show them how it is applied in our daily life, so that we can nurture them, so become holistic or well-balanced of students. And then the third objective is to instill sense of belonging and love to Iium, and to bridge and acquaint the students with their new learning community and CFS resources, to ensure the smooth running of the education journey in CFS. I just go to very quickly on this because why the main objective is to show you the module. So later on we can discuss this later with our is to stimulate the new students with the disturbance tu.
Okay.
Unmute brother Typhoon, please. Admin, you mute everyone. Please unmute brother Typhoon. Admin. Inshallah.
Okay, hold on.
So can I continue?
Okay.
All right. All right, let's continue. Next slide is my slide moving?
Yes.
Okay. So eventually, we like to achieve that the CFS student having a home from home feeling. So this one, of course, for the time being, I don't think they are feeling home like home is just at their own home, because why, as we know that we are not allowed to have the student in campus. And then the next things that we have to achieve is that the student is ready to embrace change and adopt the new Sejahtera mindset and attitude. A student who mentally and physically ready to face life in CFS Gambang. A students who behave as a responsible citizen, contribute to the society, and show respect to the environment and surrounding. And then lastly, we like them to be proud as Iium students and who are able to lead the way through the spirit of Islam. So this is the concept that being always repeated by Tan Sri. Okay, this is my main objective of this briefing. So, brothers and sisters, and all distinguished guests, so the first module that we have to deliver is that on amanah. Where the amanah, we have two topics. One is the honesty and integrity. The learning outcome is there. The delivery method, only one, online discussion. And then after this thorough discussion with IOHK and there's a few senior staff pertaining to the module, we have put some value added to the content. And then we have put up the link so that all facilitator can refer directly to the link, and then you can study the material. Then you can deliver to the new students. Now, based on the last month discussion with the our Ta'aruf task force, of course managed by our new director, Madam Sharizat. So during the workshop, we have decided that at CFS level, we only introduce this core value, not go into deep. Because why, later on, the student will follow another reconceptualization during another Ta'aruf session in main campus when they start their undergraduate journey. So we don't want to have this redundancy whereby we go into detail all the values, we put all the ayat Quran, ada tafsir dan sebagainya, just like we have, some of us have done in the last year session. Because why, I believe most of you already get this detailed slide on this core values about the Khalifah, Amanah, Iqra, and Rahmatul Alamin. So this time around, we hope that the slide only being used by the facilitator for them to explain to the students, not for the student themselves. Because why, from the discussion from our workshop last month, we agree that it is too much if we go into deep to all these terms to the new students. As we know that the new students come from various backgrounds. We don't want them to become a culture shock via online. Suddenly when they come to CFS or Iium, and then in the first week or second week of Ta'aruf, suddenly they'll be exposed to these terms, which is to some of them is very sangat asing bagi mereka. It's too early for them. So these are the decisions that we have made in our previous workshop. So that is why my team and the IOHK team, we decide to come up with this module, whereby, for example, in this Amanah 1, the material is you just deliver the story of Nabi Musa in Surah Al-Qasas, verses 27 to 28. This is the story of Nabi Musa. So we just pick up some lesson from the story. And then the next one, the story of Umar Al-Khattab, with the young girl and the male. I don't want to go to detail on the story because why it's not fair with this very limited of time. So we provide the link for you to go to the website and you can read this detail of the story. And also the story of Khalifah Umar al-Aziz and his integrity. So also we provided the link. So we hope that with this story, it is enough for you to for the facilitator to share with the new students what it is amanah is all about. It's about honesty and about integrity. So the activities just online sharing and reflection or muhasabah between the facilitator and the new students. Next one is amanah 2. The same, the concept is the same, the methodology also similar. We have this delivery method also online, the material, the link are given there. For example, the story of Abu Kilabah al-Jarmi. So, no, brothers and sisters, it's very, what we call this, orang kata beruntung lah, you know, because why? For me, myself, this is the first time I read about Abu Kilabah al-Jarmi. So who is this Abu Kilabah al-Jarmi? Actually, is one of the great sahabi of Rasulullah SAW. He are the one who yang banyak meriwayatkan hadis. And it's a very great story about this Abu Kilabah al-Jarmi. We also provide the link so that you can share with the students about the attitude of Abu Kilabah on gratefulness. So we can share with the students about the gratefulness mentioned by Tan Sri just now. We should address concept of gratefulness to the students so that mereka bersyukur in whatever situation they are being right now. The situation they are in right now. Especially during this pandemic, we know in detail we can share so many stories about the condition, the poor condition of our students in terms of stress, in terms of the burden they have to bear during the teaching and learning. Okay, next one is the module on Iqra. So this is about the passion for knowledge and seek for knowledge, about to nurture the passion to seek knowledge, to understand, which is the material is to look at or to tadabbur the Surah Al-Alaq from verses 1 to verses 5 only, not the whole surah. And then the guidelines provided by my team, the link is given, so you can take a look to the video, and then whatever lesson that you can take from the video, share with the new students. And then next one is the ethic or adab is seeking knowledge. So this is very important, you know. Ethic is seeking knowledge and to nurture good behavior in seeking knowledge. So we have an issue about the students on the online, about the integrity, about attending the exam, attending the quiz, and then the test online via online. So it's very important for us to address this good behavior, for them to be honest with full integrity in taking the assessment online. And then the material, another story about Nabi Musa and Khidir. So we have challenges in seeking the knowledge during during pandemic. Everything must go online. So the challenges reflected from the story of Musa and Khidir, so that the student can take the lesson the challenges while doing the assignment, following the lecture, the class by the academic staff or by their lecturer. Sorry. I try to go very fast. That's why sometimes kita terlajak. Okay, next one, the module on Khalifah. So now the module on Khalifah is more to the concept of the leadership within the students. It is to discover the attributes of leadership from the Islamic perspective. And the material, you can refer to Surah Al-Baqarah ayat 30. Yang kita selalu baca, is called Rabbuka lil malaikati inni ja'ilun fil ardi khalifah. Maknanya Allah menjadikan manusia itu sebagai khalifah di muka bumi, sebagai tanggungjawab mereka, amanah untuk menjaga alam dan sebagainya. And then a strong attribute of leaders in the story of Talut in Surah Al-Baqarah 247 hingga 252. And then the detail of the stories you can find from the link provided by my team. Now the story of Talut is very inspiring, very inspiring. Just to mention a little bit, how Tolut from thousands of followers and then being reduced by just a few hundred followers or few hundreds per personnel of his military military force. But with that few hundreds, Tolut managed to defeat Jalut with almost 250,000 standing army. So how Tolut managed to do that? So it is detailed in this link. So we can share this strong leadership in Tolut, how he led his small number of army to defeat Jalut. So hopefully we can, all facilitator can go through this material and share with the students, inshallah. Next one is the module of Khalifah 2. This one about the responsibility of to be a leader, responsible to him or herself, to community, to nature. Responsible, for example, during this pandemic era, if we have the student in campus, for example, they must follow the SOP, for example, to be responsible by themselves. Because why? This is what lacking that we can see in our community, in our politician. The responsibility is really what we call this. They approve the evidence. They're not responsible with the SOP, which is created by the authority, the rules and regulations. So when one time they ask us to follow the SOP, and then one time you can see leaders are not following the SOP. It shows the irresponsible among some of the among our people in our society. So in this case, I think we can focus on not just term of SOP, but also as a student. Kalau pergi tinggi sangat nanti pening pula mereka ni kan. So just go to very at their level, about the responsible for self, community, and nature. And then the material also we provided, Islam and Protection of Environment. My team also provide the links, so you can go through the links. And this is the last one. Alhamdulillah. After this, we can have a discussion with my team or with Honorable Tan Sri. So this is the module of Rahmatan lil Alamin, or RLA. The concept was Sejahtera. And to cut things short, so everything is provided in the link, which is Sejahtera Academic Framework, which is the main objective of this module is for the student to achieve the balance students in terms of physical, emotional, spiritual, and intellectual. These are the things that shared by Tan Sri just now, and hopefully you can achieve this, the concept of Budiman. Thank you very much. Apologize of my tersasul dan sebagainya, because why we are very short of time. So without wasting any time, I hand over to Brother Zainul. Don't worry everyone, we'll share you the slide later. Okay, Zainul, the floor is yours. Thank you very much.
Okay, Alhamdulillah, thank you very much, Brother Taifun Hisham, for the briefing. Now I will open the floor for participants to ask any question pertaining to the session. If there is any, you may address the question.
Zainul, Assalamualaikum.
Waalaikumsalam.
Okay, I think you can also read the questions, if any, through the chat
Okay, all right.
box. Yeah,
The first question in the chat box. Is it okay to use politicians as examples in our session with students?
Just now, it's just my spontaneous remark. Just as usual, sometimes when we talk telajak bahasa sebagainya, cumanya contoh, people on our surrounding juga, they are not following the rules and regulations, because we have comment from the students in the campus. When we ask them to follow the SOP, to be responsible, then the student will reflect to the staff. Why you want us to follow the SOP when the staff are not following the SOP? So then we can tell them there should be muhasabah ataupun menjadi sempadan or not. That one should be a lesson for them. If they saw someone, for example, those adults, the staff in campus or the politician, that should be the something that they have to take the lesson from that, not to follow. So, and then another thing is that, for my opinion, it is kita panggil apa, something it is done openly. People are sharing it in social media. People are sharing it in news about the issue of the politician not following SOP. So I think this one depends on how we share with the students. It's not about to label anyone. It is about for us to take that as a lesson. So I leave it to the facilitator. If it is suitable with the right words, with the right approach, I think why not? So that's my opinion. Still open to discussion, no problem. We can decide here because I think we have 200 viewers. So I think this one a good achievement for this event. So we can take a consensus, no problem. If we want to take that as a point to share with the new students. Thank you very much to the one who to share the question. So itu sajalah daripada saya.
Okay, can I respond to this, Sharizat? Thank you very much. I think your briefing is fantastic. I wish I was a student again to go through this module. Masa saya student dulu tak ada, kita main tangkap wap je. Bila dah tua pun nak ni. But I think it's a fantastic module. I was just wondering, do we have this in terms of documentation ke? Maknanya after the ta'aruf, ada students yang nak revisit, can they revisit? Sometimes you need to be reminded of the stories and something. I think you need to put a permanent archive that they can go and visit all the time. This ta'aruf is not a 2-week thing. I think it's a lifeline. People like me also want to visit and see what are the things that the students are learning and we can learn from the students. But that question tentang bila staff ataupun rector tak buat apa yang dia cakap, I think the student must be also courageous enough to tegur. I think this is one budaya that I want to create, that orang muda-muda ni boleh tegur orang tua, tapi tegur beradab lah. Yeah? Because kalau kita tak biarkan begitu, kadang-kadang orang tua ni dia take for granted je. Whatever they do is right. Sometimes there is a not a conflict, a kind of a disagreement in how things are seen. I think that discussion needs to be brought to fore because we want to understand where the youngsters are coming from. And I think that is a healthy discussion, but it has to be done in a very with decorum lah, tak payah menjerit macam orang parlimen ni. Kita that I think that there must be that kind. And kita pun diperingatkan oleh orang muda, which I think is a good thing because we sometimes forgot also. Tapi saya tak setuju kalau kita bercakap untuk mengaibkan orang. That I think is a no-no. Sama ada secara langsung, secara tidak langsung, I think that should not be the practice because it's not something that we want to create a disharmony in our midst, inshallah. Thanks.
Okay, I believe in the chat box. Okay, all right.
Can I respond to Tan Sri's remark just now?
Yes, please, madam.
Okay, Tan Sri and Prof. Haris, Brother Mushib, Brother Typhoon, and everyone. Tan Sri mentioned about having some kind of archive or some kind of document to store or to keep all the documents pertaining to ta'aruf activities in the future for future reference. Inshallah, Tan Sri, we are in the midst of having or developing a ta'aruf portal, ta'aruf activities portal, and in fact our task force team and instead under the, of course, the under our leader, Prof. Faris, Dr. Hamwira from the team has developed this kind of this portal, and in the portal we are going to insert all or attach all the activities, the videos and whatnot for the future reference, and at the same time to be referred by the facilitators as well. So I think inshallah in terms of the sustainability of all these documents and activities, it will be there, country, inshallah.
But I also think, Sharizad, once we do this, because I've been there for 3 or 4 months, I think we should also share it with other universities. I mean, we are the only Islamic university. I don't think USM will do this. I cannot remember doing this. But I think they will benefit, at least a Muslim student will benefit from what we got. After all, the values and the things, memang untuk orang rahmatan, kita rahmatan lil alamin kan. So I think we can share them, and we can also lead the way in this particular respect. So think about that, but we need to do it in stages lah kot. Takut kalau terlampau cepat sangat, ada yang tak kena, orang nak komen ni banyak lah. So make sure when it's firm, and then we can share it with other people, insyaAllah.
We will wait for Prof. Faris to say something to us.
He's unmuted.
I just wrote to him actually this morning. Ampun, Prof.
I guess Tan Sri, I think on this one, okay, and brothers and sisters, CFS, of course, I should first congratulate CFS lah for being very proactive. And I think last year we tested it, alhamdulillah, it worked well, and we hope that this new intake also, we are going to have a similar good experience with our new students. To follow up, since this is the second time that we are doing this, yes, we did discuss this issue in our task force meeting about the documentation. We want to, I think, document both. One is the framework, the concept, as well as the modules. And as a matter of fact, now we are going to conduct another workshop to enhance our module, especially for the new intake to the main campus lah, because I think there should be another level for students coming to the main campus, which also involve PG student as well as international students that we need to take care at the Gombak campus. And I think I fully agree with what our Tan Sri Rector mentioned, suggested that maybe this time, Brother Taifu, while you are doing this, maybe you have to have some documentation, record keeping of what we have done, and also the artifacts, the evidence, like whatever students produce, maybe infographics, video. I think we can keep all those things as evidence, and maybe later on we can compile it and make a good portfolio, inshallah. Thank you.
Betul, Prof. Inshallah. We do that.
Tapi just now, Tuan Haji Mursyid, if I can ask, or maybe Taifu can highlight us, what are now the number of students coming, confirm? This intake? Who has the statistic? Yes.
3,700, Prof.
3,700, meaning that more than last year lah. Last year was
Yes, more than last year. Last year was
Alright.
3,001.
Our, if I may respond, our projected number for this intake actually is 3,665, and now we are getting more than 700. But we normally allow about 10% plus minus, because with the passage of time that some students sometimes draw themselves from the center. But at least the targeted number will be fulfilled, hopefully, inshallah.
Okay.
Okay, any more question to our speaker?
Assalamualaikum. Can I ask question?
Okay, please, Brother Samsul.
Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh all. My name is Samsul from AED department, architecture department. To a question to Tan Sri, basically, congratulations on the new addition to our family of logo family, UNESCO. And then we want to know more on the UNESCO punya higher education, higher learning education, sustainable development. What it's all about, and how we can streamline into CFS in term of the routing from that UNESCO punya ni. Because what comes in mind when I go to Gombak, so the first signboard tu kita tengok Greater Gombak. So kalau kita translate to Greater Gambang pun nampak macam menarik jugalah kan. So we want to see how it can be implemented, start from the gateway ataupun from the routing system tu, that we can streamline with the main campus. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. I think this Greater Gombak ini is a suggestion from United Nations University sebenarnya. Because kita nak masukkan Kuantan, Gambang dengan Pagoh in this RCE ni. Tapi because it is so diverse, dia tak ada one word to describe it. So they say, why don't you use the word Greater Gombak? Greater Gombak means masuk Kuantan, masuk Pagoh, masuk Gambang. That's what it means. The whole notion is dia nakkan kita work in tandem with one another. Dia tak mau Gombak, Kuantan, Pagoh. They work together as a unit. And therefore, your suggestion really makes sense. There are many things that I think Kuantan do better than Gombak. So we are learning from what you do. For example, when we talk about the control of COVID misalnya, much of the experience of Kuantan is something that we learn from, because there is no experience as far as that's concerned. So where there are experiences that we can benefit from one another, we certainly want to do this. But this is not to say that we want to work in silos. I mean, I am not into silos. How do you work together? I can give you the report. In fact, for Faris kata, we need to document the nilai, because now everybody is talking about values, but nobody has got the module. The West has no module at all. So kalau the way you do it, I already see there will be interest in how values are embedded through storytelling. The cerita-cerita ni are all storytelling. And the storytelling, as far as my reading is concerned, is the best way to tell people what values are all about, because you cannot teach values. Teaching values does not work actually, but by storytelling, then you becomes more relevant to the people who read the stories, and they can relate to the story. So look at that as one investment moving forward. And then if we can document what are the changes that the students have gone through, I think it makes a fantastic sort of way forward as far as changing. Today I brought in because I begin to feel that the student must be able to respond as an individual when things are not connected. You know, they cannot reach people because of mobility. They cannot use handphones because they have connectivity. And how do they react as an individual? I think that part needs to be enhanced, and that's why I thought the user manual idea itu, dia sendiri boleh berdikari and take action and be confident about it. Later on, they can connect people. But when it comes to emergency, I'm not too sure how they will respond immediately, rather than trying to commit suicide or do all the stories that I've got in terms of suicide. Kebanyakan suicide ini are spotted when they go into their Facebook. Somebody nampak, I think the last one I was told, somebody nampak somebody tengah gulung cadal, you know, trying to, I think, hang him or herself. And then they call the principal, and then the principal run to the room, and that get this person to be saved. So if they don't have the individual resilience to cope, then I think we are a little bit more at risk as far as that is concerned. But I would like to echo what Faris said. I think you have done fantastic work. I cannot imagine how better we can do this, but let's trail along. I think we will see the impact as we go along, inshallah. Thank you very much. I wanted to find out, sorry, if no question, can the facilitator respond in the sense of what are your issues, what are the problems that you face, so that we can also have some idea of how we can help you and to make this better. Maybe not immediately, maybe over a period of time, we can make this into a kind of a routine activity lah, rather than ta'aruf. Okay, ta'aruf is true, but when you have problem, it can happen anytime. So when that thing happens, I think that this ta'aruf thing must be something which is within the system all the time, rather than seasonal kind of a thing. So what do you need if you want to make this happen in that particular context? Any response?
Assalamualaikum Tan Sri. I am Brother Muhammad Rafai bin Muhammad Basri, the head of AED department. So basically, responding to your question and your concern just now, I think the most important things that we need to improve after this is the connectivity between CFS and the Gombak itself from the main camp. I believe that last year we introduced with the concept of HIGH, and then we have FAST, Fatana, Amanah, Siddiq, and Tabligh. Okay, all this concept basically is quite familiar to the staff who has a background from Iium, the staff graduated from Iium. But for other staff who are not go through the system as yet, I think it's quite challenging for them to comprehend the concepts. So I think there's a missing link between all these new concepts or the things that we are trying to promote, the new thing that we are trying to promote, or we try to reconceptualize to the staff itself, particularly in CFS. Maybe we need to have a more session, okay, with the top management, okay, to discuss on the new concept, the things that we are going to implement, the roadmap. I think it's not being properly. It's not thoroughly being discussed and being shared with our community at CFS. Thank you, Prince.
Okay, for this one, I think I didn't go through the other one because I thought it's mainly for students. But if you guys want a detailed thing, I'm prepared to do another 2 hours with you on a roadmap or whatever lah. I think we need to keep abreast with one another. Maybe after ta'aruf nikah, where you're a little bit more free, your new director seems to be very eager, can organize one, and I will volunteer my time if Aziza gives you the green light. And the other thing that I want to also mention, I think our CPD is picking this up. If I'm not mistaken, Faris, Dr. Nurlida now has put this into the punya tight or some of these induction courses lah for new lecturers, including those who are not from Iium. So we are trying to close the gap. Only yang masalahnya people who are already here, yang dalam universiti ni, yang dah di sini, yang still have not gone through. I think we are thinking of how to tackle that, inshallah.
I have one question. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Besides the contents, I also would like to have, as the facilitator, I also would like to have additional help in terms of tools, since we are going to do our ta'aruf session online. So since this is not only teaching and learning, right? It must be communication, it must be engagement. So I would like to know more tools, examples, probably from our colleagues, youngsters that have more knowledge. Since we are old school, we only know pen and pencil, whiteboard, marker, duster. So I think it's really a need for me as the facilitator on how to engage with the student. If not, they're going to be one-way communication only. That's all.
So do we also encourage a facilitator write their own blogs, misalnya? That could be one way of linking their experience to sharing their experience to other people. Maybe for students, misalnya, they write their own blogs. What is it they benefit from a lecturer? What is it that they think they want some more? I think those kind of free communication should be encouraged. Good. Do you have your own WhatsApp, as it were, where you share experiences of the nature, or you can ask a question? No, I ran into this problem when I was doing my facilitating. What sort of experience do you have? Do you have those kind of a communication among yourself? I think that could be created as a kind of a platform for people who want to share. Your idea is very good, Habibah, because otherwise you never learn also. And after a while you get tired because you don't get the response that you want to get. So sharing of this nature will be good, inshallah. Ask another question since you are not asking questions. Apa ni, facilitator do they share the same slides, the same PowerPoint, or do they create their own?
If we refer to the last year punya session, Tan Sri, actually it is an initiative by the certain department and certain facilitator. They share whatever they have, and then being used by the facilitators last year. And then from my observation, the slides were very detailed. So that's why previous workshop that we decided that CFS just go very superficial to introduce the terms for the students. So this is why we come up with the module that I just presented, just to share with the students about the story of the Sahaba, story of Nabi Musa, and then from that they can reflect together with the students about the value that they can learn from these stories. So because we also have a very limited time, and then these are the things that we have discussed in last week discussion with IHK. So we come up with the module that I just presented just now.
Yeah, saya merasakan because this is going to be an ongoing thing. I think this is going to be next year after that. I think we should start thinking of how do you make this into a very professional kind of enterprise. Mananya, you should start by building the slides now, so that the same slides will be used for the future ta'aruf. Then I'm sorry, I was reading this I don't know, this apa tu bayinah. The person yang create this bayinah ni is I forgot his name, tapi it's a one-man show. He started a one-man show, and I studied his background. That's what they do. They collect slides there, and now he is now almost worldwide running this thing, and he offers it free of charge to other people. I think we should be looking along those lines juga, because after all, the effort that you do now is the effort that will be used again later. It's not a one-time thing. So maybe slides yang dah pakai tahun ini, I don't know. I'm quite happy to facilitate this. Maybe we get the communication people to look at the slides, whether the slides are professionally done, and whether the color combination are good, whether the slides are not too crowded, and then we can tell people this is a quality of materials we've got. It's not just the content. It's also the professionalism of delivering this. I think this is where the Muslim worlds are not too good at when we try to convince other people that when we talk about quality, we want to also show that our works of quality. Mungkin kita cakap ada quality tapi kontennya tak ada quality, tak bagus juga. So think along those lines. I don't mind investing kalau mesti if you need orang dalam sibuk, I don't mind hiring orang luar buat kita punya ni, so that at the end of the day kita katakan this is the quality that we go. If you want to use a slide, these are the ones that we use, otherwise we will not entertain. So this is the second year. I think it is still early, but if you can come up with a discussion What is it that you need? Let me know. We can work through this, inshallah.
Okay, agree, Tan Sri. Thank you very much for your suggestion.
Sri, Assalamualaikum, Dr. Mushik here. In the previous Ta'aruf Task Force Committee, if I can remember, there was a motion mooted that taking the advantage of having a first meeting with students during this what we call Ta'aruf program through this grouping of Insan Sejahtera, that for the purpose of monitoring, mentoring them, that we continue having the same group and setting. And these students are monitored throughout, their stay by the respective mentor. And probably you can integrate further with this, the grouping for Usrah, because basically the content is about the same. It's about developing the value, the norms. So what is your opinion on that?
I don't know. I feel one of your main core business is to develop this. Because it all starts with you. So misalnya kalau kita ada one section and is CFS ni is a part of a dakwah, I call it, but it is a different kind of a dakwah lah. You go into when I was in USM, when I was in charge of the Pusat Racun Negara, we hired 12 budak-budak yang programmer daripada College Mulia di Taiping. These are fantastic students yang pandai buat grafik. Then dia create macam poisoning cases, dia create a story over the poisoning cases. And then now we've got booklets. So misalnya if you are involved in paracetamol poisoning, there's a booklet that you can go through what to do. So there are all these modules, mulanya dengan like what you are doing lah. So that's why when I talk about this, if I can hire a few programmers yang mengatakan, okay, kita nak bercakap tentang cerita ini, what sort of graphic can you do, so that this story will be very attractive, bukan saja untuk student kita, student lain yang nak gunakan, we can give this free of charge ataupun give them minimal charges, but people begin to look at CFS as a place where all this material comes out. You have got the content, you know the story, but only then how to put it into something which is quote unquote marketable, that will put CFS punya nama higher in the context of this kind of dakwah. We call it ta'aruf lah, it's okay, call it ta'aruf, but you will be the center for this. I think it's worthwhile investing. Maybe some of our students pun, they are probably good creator of stories and this kind. We can hire them. It will not cost as much as compared to the return that we're going to get. Think along those lines, I think, because next year Ta'aruf will probably do this better than what we are doing it today. Modulnya sama juga. Last year punya cerita dengan this year punya cerita sama tak? Is there any difference?
In basics of the same, the idea content-wise, but the approach and probably the materials is added so that to suit to the situations, circumstances.
Yeah, I think about that, Murshid. I'm serious about it. How we can make this as an integral part. Maknanya bukan ad hoc lah. Nak datang baru nak buat. It's an ongoing thing.
Yeah, it's going to be ongoing, and that will be best. And again, it's going to be a yearly routine upon admission of students. That we have this, and we have material and the way of how we conduct to make sure that the continuations of this monitoring the students, especially by the respective involvement of the staff, and then later on continue at the undergraduate levels. Then I'm sure that the result will be tremendous one.
Okay.
Rather than just an ad hoc type of approach.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks. I look forward to this.
Okay. If there are no more questions, I believe that we have now reached at the end of our program. It is already 10:04 p.m. So maybe one last question, if any. Okay. All right. If there are no questions, let me end the session. All right. Alhamdulillah, thank you very much, Tan Sri, for your to lend your precious time and give your aspiration to all the participants. Okay, thank you to all deputy rectors, all your MC members, directors, and also top management of the IIUM. Okay, thank you all participants, especially for your time to join the session and show your commitment in realizing the university aspiration. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guide us and bless us with his protection. All right, so if there are anything, so we end the session with Tasbih Kafarah and Surah Al-As.
Thank you, Tan Sri. Thank you very much. Thank you,
Asri,
everyone.
thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you everyone.
Thank you, Prof. Hafiz, Prof. Hafiz. Thank you all. Assalamualaikum.
Thank you very much.